I guess we're ready to get started. Welcome.
Just calling it to order, I'm sorry, we need to call the meeting to order.
Well, he has the hammer.
Okay. Okay, 4B every year, we appoint new officers every year, so it's always awkward to start each year with the meeting because going through the process, and oftentimes we have citizen new members that really don't have any idea of the way we do things. And so we'll certainly help you through all that, but basically, the first item on the agenda is appointment of officers, and basically what we have is, by the charter of the 4B, is president, vice president, and then secretary treasurer. And these are all positions that are serve one-year terms each year. So our process for that is, basically we take nominations, and then and I would say Carla's actually was the secretary treasurer, so maybe she could actually start out the process, and when we elect the president, they would take over the meeting and go forward at that point. But so if you're a little familiar, you've been through this at least once, but we would take nominations for, like, say, and we'll go in order, like president and vice president and the secretary treasurer, and people can volunteer or, any way we want to do that, and then we'll call a vote for it, and all in favor of whoever is the lucky person, and then vote on that, and then we would go to the other two. All these are kind of, the way we have it designed, council is the primary control of the 4B, so we don't, the president's not going to be required to sign documents and all this. It's mostly we go through our process, and then things go to the council for, official award of projects and all that. So the president would run the meeting, and then the vice president would in the president's absence. And so we, myself now and Phil later will be basically putting together the agenda and probably coordinating with the president, and because we anticipate having more meetings now that we actually have some money to work with. And so with that, if we want to go ahead and proceed with just basically seeking nominations for the president, taking a vote, then vice president, same thing, and then the secretary treasurer, and then we can get that kind of resolved and then move through our meeting.
Okay. So if anyone wants to seek the presidency, who wants to?
Does anybody have an interest in volunteering for the presidency? Does anybody have anybody they would prefer to be president?
Right.
I have a preference for Brian to be president.
You have a preference for me to be president? Okay. Well, that's one nomination. Anyone else? I mean, I'm okay with it. If nobody wants to do it, I'm okay with doing it. So it's really, I want to give the new members to the board an opportunity to volunteer if they choose to.
I know Karen said Tracy indicated that he travels a lot and he preferred not to be nominated for any positions if possible.
Because of his schedule.
Obviously, tonight he wasn't able to make this meeting, but
Okay.
so you
Okay.
have that input.
Okay. So I will seek
call for
for
a
the
vote?
vice presidency.
Well, call for a vote
I
then
call
with the nomination, if there is no other, and
There
then,
is no one else for asking or saying
Yeah.
I second
Yes,
his nomination.
okay.
Okay.
after the.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Now, I did not vote for
Everybody sitting
myself, so
Okay.
do I need to vote?
Yes.
We would still have a majority, so
Yeah.
you can certainly,
I'll
but
have
Okay.
to abstain then.
Okay. All right.
okay. Given
you
that,
want me to take it
Brian, you
over?
can take
Okay.
it from,
So we need to fill the position of vice president, and we need to seek nominations. Does have anyone on the committee have any interest?
I'll nominate Miss Carla.
Thank you.
Carla? Anybody second that?
I'll second that nomination.
Okay. Mike will second that. Everybody, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Okay.
We nominated Carla then as our vice president, and we'll move on to the secretary treasurer.
And be advised that we don't require you taking minutes or doing anything. The staff handles all that. This is just.
What is
we
the role of
officially
the
have to-
secretary treasurer then?
Well, it's the official, it's a required position by our,
By the, right,
but there really isn't anything required.
right, because it's all taken by
You don't
staff.
get a little cash box with a little thing,
no.
put the money in.
Yeah, we got a little bucket that we go bury out in the yards.
You get to go carry the bucket for donations.
Yeah, it's the garage sale box.
With that said, Mike, do you have any interest?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
I would be interested.
I said Mike because I want to get the new members involved.
Yes.
I think with your involvement, you're going to, you'll get a bigger experience out of it. And I know the other two people on the committee are council members, so they've got the opportunity to be in sessions and see what's going on. So I think this is kind of immerse you as well. So I appreciate that.
Yep.
Nominate, do we have a second for Mike?
Second.
Robert Feaster. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So said.
Okay,
Okay.
takes care of that one. So you have a
Ready?
copy of the agenda
I do.
in front of you? Okay.
All right, next on the agenda is a visitor comments. Do we have anybody that'd like to speak? No? Okay. Our agenda then moves to item 3, consider appointment.
Which we
of-
just
which we
did,
just
so now
did.
item 4.
Item 4, then we'll consider approval of minutes of the regular Community Development Corporation meeting that was held in July 24, 2024.
And these were all sent out as part of that packet, and Karen did a pretty thorough job of recapping your meeting from
The meeting, yeah.
July.
Are there any questions with the minutes? If none, then I would ask for a motion for approval of the minutes.
I'm making a motion to consider approval of the minutes of the regular Community Developer Corporation meeting held on July 23rd, 2024.
Thank you, Rhonda. Any second?
I'll second.
Robert Feaster, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Item number 5, consider approval of proposed budget amendment for fiscal year 2025, and I guess I get to turn that back over to you.
Yep, okay. Kind of bring this, I think you'll all remember the discussion of this, the ones that were here. Mike, this will be new for you. But as part of our budget process this last year, we identified we have like a base budget, which is our general operations. We always have also supplemental requests for basically their new programs or features or things that we aren't part of our base program that we purposely separate for consideration, just to be in full disclosure and talk about that. And oftentimes they're one-time expenditures, sometimes they're a new ongoing expenditure, and we certainly identify them that way. This is more of a one-time thing, with amenities at Doubletree. Phil had proposed that we update our spray features, and with that, I think we have a couple pictures here of interactive elements for the kids to play with, and really to kind of spice up our operations there. We want to always be continually looking for things to improve and make it better. But in the discussion, we had a budget request of $75,000 for that. And then we also identified that we propose this as a 2-year. We $75,000 for this year, and then we would propose an additional $50,000 for next year, just to kind of measure it out. And the 4B board approved that, and we were all good. So when we presented the budget to council in the following meeting, Councilman Kixmiller suggested, who was actually on the 4B at the time, that no, hey, this is, if we're doing the amenities, would it make more sense let's just go ahead and move next year's up to this year because we have plenty adequate balances to do that, so it really wouldn't affect our financial situation at all. And there was discussion of that and kind of consensus from council that, yes, let's move it up and kind of do this all together. Well, the problem with that, that was great, except for the fact that the 4B approved the 75,000, and so we couldn't really move forward adding that to the council-approved budget. So we left it at 75,000 with intent that we would come back and approach that as a budget amendment, which is what we're doing now. So this basically is amending this year's budget to add the additional $50,000 expenditure to accommodate the two-year program. And actually on the council meeting agenda for next week, we have basically an item to purchase all the equipment for the $125,000. But to properly keep it in order, the 4B approves it and then council approves it after that. If council changes that, we have to go back to the 4B, and we just didn't really have a time frame to do that before year end, which didn't really make much difference because we could just come do it now. So hopefully that made some sense. So actually we're just requesting that, hey, we earmarked 75,000. We want to go ahead and grab the next year's proposed amount of 50,000, add it to that to make it 125,000, and that'll be our amended budget for this year going forward. So that's the proposal before you tonight.
Anybody have any questions?
Ken, I have a question. Just for 4B, can you, just for clarification, what is 4B?
Okay, it's a good question. The 4B is basically a portion of the tax code that allows for economic development. Okay. And so it's for sales tax, we're authorized to have increments of sales tax. In addition, the state gets 6.25%, cities are allotted 1%, and then there's an additional 1% available to cities, but they have to be specifically purposed and voted on by the public. So we have a half cent for DCTA.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And so we voted back in the mid-90s.
2004.
2004, early 2000s, that's right, to add a 4. And there's two sections. There's 4A and there's 4B. 4A is just for economic development. 4B was added as another option, which includes economic development, but it also added park and recreation development as well, because oftentimes those are really tied closely to economic development. So we opted for the 4B with intent to really mostly develop, our main idea was develop our trail system. Because we just, we're in the early stages of wanting to design a city trail, and this would be a funding mechanism for that. But even though we had a whole array of purposes allowed for, basically any kind of parks, recreation features purposes, council wanted to really narrow that down, and we only approved the trail system and soccer facilities, which we had earmarked for Doubletree. And so the voters approved that, so we do collect the half-cent sales tax. And so 4B, it's basically, we have that set up as a quasi-separate, we basically treat it as one of our funds because it's council-controlled, but cities have this set up in some cities it's set up where citizens and council really isn't even part of it, which creates a whole lot of issues with competing priorities and all that. But we've made it really work well for us because we've been able to accommodate a pretty comprehensive trail system, Doubletree with the soccer facilities and all that has been very successful. And so 4B now we have it segregated and done separately because we have to manage those revenues for their stated purpose.
And to clarify, when we set it up 4B, which includes economic development, but when we went to voters, we further restricted
Right.
specifically
For those two
to-
specific uses.
Yes, Right.
Yes.
So we can
We
use
could go
the
back
money.
to voters at any point in time and request to add other
Economic
elements if we
development.
want to, but that's for another time and purpose.
Does
'Cause
that include increasing the amount and/or decreasing the amount?
we could decrease it, but we can't increase it.
Unless
Well,
you can find a way to get out of DCTA, Brian.
Well, no,
yeah,
what I'm-
we're limited by our, because we've allocated the full 1%.
Right.
But there may be some, we more than likely could sunset it. We've issued debt on behalf of the 4B, but the 4B actually could issue the debt itself.
Right.
We opted to actually have the city issue the debt because we could do it cheaper that way. And then we have a repayment set up from the 4B. Long as the debt service is satisfied for all that, there would be opportunity to redirect it to something else or add to it, or
That was really where the question was going. So once we get through the projects that this is originally dedicated for, there will be a segment of that that's dedicated to maintenance. And continue to maintain them, improve them, correct their deficiencies, whatever.
Right.
But if we don't need the entire half cent, we could go to the voters for a reduction and dedicate
Allocate
a
it to
portion
something else.
to economic development or whatever else that we choose.
public safety or street maintenance. Or
Okay.
There's a number of identified things that
Right.
you